Welcome back to the Weekly YouTube channel, where draft season never stops, and neither do we. I'm your host, Owen, and today we're going to be talking about a player that I'm curious to see how many people genuinely remember. I'm talking about Jalen Reagor, the wide receiver drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles, one pick ahead of Justin Jefferson. That is what he's famous for, going to 21st overall in the 2020 NFL draft ahead of Justin Jefferson. Reagor was drafted out of TCU after having a successful-ish college career. And I was curious, what did Howie Roseman see in Reagor to make him want to draft him in the first round? I did not watch his film that season for how I do now with draft prospects, and I was curious to see what he saw to make him want to pick him in the first round over a guy like a Justin Jefferson. So I went through and watched Jalen Reagor's film as if I was watching him for this upcoming draft cycle, where I watched his film, graded it, and found a round grade that I would have felt comfortable taking him based off his 2019, which was his draft year, NFL film. He was a 3-year junior, 5'11", 200 pounds, and I was curious to see if I would come to the same conclusion that he was worth that first-round pick or even closer to it to make it justifiable. So this is my summation of my scouting report on Jalen Reagor. We're going to go through, break down a couple clips, and I'm going to tell you what I feel like he would have came out as a prospect, how I would have viewed him, and if that aligns with what Howie Roseman saw. And if that's just the case that he just wasn't a great pro, because we'll get into what happened to his career afterwards, or if it was that they overlooked a lot of things in Reagor's film trying to get a specific type of player, and they ended up taking a guy who was nowhere near worthy of a first-round pick. So starting off, like I said, Reagor was a 5'11", 200-pound wide receiver out of TCU. He had a 1,000-yard receiving season with 9 receiving touchdowns in 2018. Then in 2019, he went down to only 611 receiving yards and 5 receiving touchdowns. However, his return game exploded in 2019, where he had 2 return touchdowns, both on punts. And that's one of the things that we're going to start with. We're going to start with the pros of Jalen Reagor as a prospect. Because for me, I broke him down, and I'll get to my final grade at the end, but I'm not so sure why Howie Roseman made him a first-round pick. For me, where you saw Reagor really show that he can be an NFL player or a dynamic player in the NFL was as a returner with the ball in his hands, a run-after-catch type of player who had some good athleticism to play at the NFL level and be more of a deep threat / gimmick touch type player. Now, his RAS score from the combine testing wasn't great. His height was substandard, being at 5'10 and a half, and his weight at 206 was also not a good RAS factor. As well, his 20-yard, 10-yard split were both bad, and his agility scores were very poor. But he did have a 4.47 40-yard dash, which was good. So he ended up with a 6.03 RAS score at the combine, which is not great. And you'd think for someone who popped as much as he did as a returner and with the run-after-the-catch ability on tape, that he would have tested a bit better, which is also why you don't really want to factor combine numbers in super much when you're talking about players and watching their film. First, let's get with the pros with Reagor. He is a good returner in his 2019 film. Those 2 punt return touchdowns were electric. It shows a lot of burst, closing speed, contact balance, and ability to find the holes in his blocking scheme to be able to get the ball deep and break off huge plays for touchdowns. So I can definitely see where, even though the RAS score and the combine testing wasn't amazing, if you saw him with those return abilities that you think, okay, we're getting another phase type player who can contribute on our special teams, has some athleticism that maybe the testing didn't show that we think we can unlock. And then some of that also translated a bit over to his receiving game, where he was used a lot as a design touch player, where he would get direct snaps in the running game. He'd get put into screen games and quick short passing to be able to get the ball in his hands and get him upfield. Now, in those plays specifically, he didn't really break any huge plays that I with the consistency that I loved. So I do think that he was more well utilized with that skill set as a returner than implemented into an offense. But at the same time, and I think this also contributes to TCU's lack of production with him in 2019, was that the quarterback and the whole offensive system in general wasn't phenomenal with TCU in 2019. I think he really was a victim of that, but he was also a victim of himself. So outside of the ability to return, have some of those electric plays, he also showed an ability to high point the football, did go up and get it above the rim a few times, and did have some speed, and the defenses did respect that. When he was given space, he was able to get some good routes, have corners bite, and get separation over the top with his speed, because corners respected his ability to get down the field, and then also he was able to utilize that space that he was given because of that to create separation, which is not really saying much, because if wide receivers who are going to be NFL prospects get enough space, they should be able to create separation. But for him, it was specifically something that played into the rest of his toolkit that you would like to see, that he can kind of add that together and compound that into being a good wide receiver package for being a speed type receiver. I also thought his run blocking wasn't the worst. Like, he was a thickly built guy, 5'10", 5'11", 200 pounds. Like, yeah, it's substandard for an RAS score compared to other receivers. But being shorter with a heavier build makes you a bit more compact. He could lay some blocks in and was a hard worker when it did come to blocking after the catch in the run game on occasion. So I do think he was a good run blocker when willing. So in this clip here, we see Jalen Reagor on the bottom of our screen, right above the 20. And this is going to be an example of how he is able to, when he's given the space, he has this corner 10 yards off of him-ish, and he's able to get separation by using that space, and the corner has to respect his speed here, and he's able to come up and get the corner to bite a little bit on the fake, get deep, and then get open. This was in the fourth quarter of a close game, actively needs to be going out there making plays if he's going to be a top-level player, and he is able to get that separation. You just see he's off kind of with the quarterback, doesn't really put the ball in the right spot, but he does give him some separation within the 20 yards in the red zone area, and it's all because he has that space that teams are worrying about his ability as a receiver, and he's able to capitalize that and utilize that. So again, we have him here at the bottom of the screen with about 10 yards of cushion by the corner. And it's another play where he's able to use his speed, the corner has to respect it, and he just makes this guy look silly by giving him a little stutter move, making him think he's going to do a hard in-cut, and getting super separation on the outside, and then making a phenomenal catch on the sideline there by adjusting, contorting his body, going up and making the catch and pulling it down. So you see him, again, when given space, he's able to manipulate corners a little bit with his route running, get deep, and this is where I was talking about how he's able to kind of go up above the rim, contort his body, make some acrobatic catches, showing off some of that athleticism that I think was questioned a bit with those RAS testing scores. But he does show it here. He has the speed. It's an off-target throw. If the quarterback leads him correctly, this is an easy touchdown. But he's able to adjust, make a play on the ball in the air, and get inbounds to make that catch. So another example of how when he is given space, he's able to have some route running, some deception. His speed shows off here, and he has some good acrobatic catching ability. So this is like his entire pros section outside of the return ability with the run after catch in one clip distilled. And then our last final play here, again, bottom of your screen. This time he's facing more press man coverage, where he's going to have to come off and get his release going. It's not a great release. The corner is still able to get some hands on him. It's not super clean, and it takes him a bit to get into his actual route. You see where the quarterback is getting hit as he's just getting by the corner there. But regardless, he gets free over the top, is able to get separation, stack, gets held a little bit, draws a flag, and then goes up and high points the ball. So another play where we can see the pros in his game, getting over the top, being able to high point the ball, use that speed to threaten corners. They're worried about him getting over top of them. He has a safety leading over top to try to cap him off there, and it goes up and makes the play. So even through the contact near the line of scrimmage, he's able to get over the top. I don't love his release here, but it is something where it shows that he can create some separation and go up and get the ball, even though he's only 5'10", 5'11". Now, however, Reagor does struggle a lot on the film with some things that are going to hold him back as a wide receiver prospect in the NFL. One specifically is going to be his dealing with physicality in route especially, and it's something that I think showed up a little bit in that last clip there when he was getting pressed on the line of scrimmage. He did take a little bit longer to get into his route and did kind of almost throw off the timing with his quarterback there. The quarterback made a good play, getting hit, throwing it up to him, and he was also making a good play by going up and catching that ball. But that is one of the things that we're going to see a lot in these next few clips where negatively he just isn't able to play through a lot of contact. That's where his size does show up, the lack of size there, is when he is asked to play against press man corners or a corner gives him a bit more physicality at the stem of his route. He does struggle to get that separation. I wouldn't really call him someone who gets a ton of separation because of his route running. His route running is kind of elementary, isn't really super developed. He rounds a lot of routes. And when it comes to dealing with physicality, he isn't able to utilize that to get extra separation, like some of these guys who have the size are able to utilize their size to get separation when a corner tries to be physical with them. Reagor just isn't able to do that. We're going to show you a couple of clips here where that's not the case. So he's here at the top of your screen. This is where he's getting another 10-yard cushion off of his release. And he gets up there, and at the point of where he wants to cut in on the post there, the corner gets hands on him, and you see the quarterback looking to hit that two-man read there with the deep in, and then Reagor behind him on the post, and he's got one-on-one coverage because it's an all-out blitz. And if Reagor can get through that contact and get over the top and use his speed to threaten down the field, I'm pretty sure this quarterback could have let that launch and he could have ran under it like a center fielder and it would be fine. But he gets disrupted by this corner at the stem. There's no flag called. He has to play through that in the NFL if he's going to be able to be a successful receiver. And he just isn't able to get the separation or play off of that contact. He's just struggles with it, and then his quarterback ended up getting sacked. So this is just an example of a play where if he was able to get through that physicality, he could have made a big play for his quarterback, been the guy there who was clearly looking for him. If you watch the quarterback's eyes, he's looking for that deep pass, wants to throw it, and just can't because he doesn't have the separation or the trust that his receiver is going to be able to get off of that corner in the off-zone cover or off-man coverage. And then we see here in the very next play from scrimmage that he's a part of a passing play, up here up top again, now he's facing some more press coverage. He's trying to set up the corner for an outside route and then come back on a comebacking route, but he stumbles. He's unable to play through that physical contact once again and isn't able to create any kind of separation, even though he should be this outside speedy type receiver. He tries to set him up with a fake to the inside on his release, gets the corner, kind of giving him that leverage, so he's showing him that he's trying to get to the outside and push up the field, and the corner is just able to stay in the hip pocket, and then even when he tries to cut back again, the corner stays physical and is able to not allow him to create any separation there. So it's a play where you'd like to see him be more of a threat down the field, so this corner has to respect it, and he just isn't able to create separation and give his quarterback an out to throw to. And now this final play is another one where we're going to see him struggle with physicality by this corner, another one off man down here at the bottom of your screen, where this corner is going to get hands on him, and he's not going to be able to play through it, and the quarterback makes a poor read decision on this and tries to throw it up to him, but he's going to be double covered by the safety on this post. But at the same time, he just kind of gets physical with him, and then he stops running, quits on the play. And again, I do think he struggled with the physicality here, which is what the main problem was. But I think this is going to lead to us seeing another problem that we're going to see with his film that is like the biggest glaring need on tape with him. And it's going to be his lack of effort as well as his ability to stay on the same page with his quarterback here. He's going for the post, gets physical out of his actual route, and then just stops running here, either trying to sit down, maybe thinking that he's not going to be able to get over the top of the safety. Quarterback's already let the ball go, and it goes right into the hands of safety. Or he just gives up on the play and doesn't think the quarterback's going to throw it to him, and he does. So it's another one where don't let the physicality play with him, and it's going to lead into our next point of his negatives, which is the biggest one on film for him outside of like maybe drops, which we'll get to as well, is that his lack of being a player that plays through the whistle, has high effort, and also is off the page with his quarterback a lot. So we're going to get to those plays right now. So really quickly, this is another example of a play where he's just not on the same page with his quarterback. He wants to do a back shoulder here, and Reagor, either because he's not putting a ton of effort into it or running with the urgency to get to that spot for him, or he just isn't on the same page with his quarterback, isn't there for him, and that throw is just incomplete in a moment of the game where they really need him to show up because they're down in this game against Oklahoma State, and he's not on the same page with that quarterback there. And then for this last play from this Oklahoma State game, because I don't want to keep hammering this one singular game, we'll get to a ton of the negatives with his next game against Baylor that I watched. But right down here on the bottom of the screen, he's going to be running a two-man route combination where he's here on the bottom of the screen having the off coverage. He's going to be running the quick slant while the slot receiver tight end player here is going to be running a deep corner route. And it's going to be a two-man game where the quarterback is going to decide which matchup he likes best, especially against man coverage, and he's going to throw it forward down here in the red zone trying to get a touchdown. We see here Reagor just walks through his route, rounds it super, doesn't have any sharp running through it, that doesn't draw any real attention. He is still, at this point of his break, he's still a viable option as a receiver, but he's rounding it, coming through it, and not looking to be playing as hard as he can be. I'm not sure if that's because they called this as a one-read throw, where the quarterback's going to throw it up to this tight end regardless, but I do think that he just shows an example of poor effort, which I'm not going to show every single play, even this game or the next, where he shows poor effort in his route running, whether he's on the read side or not. Like, he is part of the play. He's part of being read in this play, and he's showing poor effort and poor route running without playing through the whistle. But other plays, especially when he's not on the play side of the reading, where the quarterback's going to be reading it, he is terrible with effort. And again, I won't show every example of that, but I'll show a few more in the next game where it was really evident where if he wasn't getting the ball, every play was a bad effort play. So in this next game against Baylor, I have 5 different plays I'm going to show you. They're either a drop or another example of him being poor effort on the play. And this one's going to be the poor effort play here. Now, like I said, in this game, when he wasn't dropping passes, this was the entirety of the game where he was running lazy routes and not being a good participant on the offense, drawing attention his way when he wasn't expecting to get the ball, or even when he was. So in this play, he's in the top here, facing press man coverage. He's going to be running a slant, and he does like a quick little release. He's still part of the play here. He's the backside slant on one-on-one coverage. He gets separation, but he's just not running through his route here. If he thinks that he could get targeted on this play, he'd be running full speed as he could. Now he doesn't, but there's no indication that the quarterback's not going to be able to come and find him on the backside here on this glance route. So I don't know why he pulls up way before the quarterback ends up throwing the ball, but it's another example of him just not putting the best effort into his game, despite him even being in the play where it's not like he's going to be exclusively not read in this play. He's in the backside, essentially the check down player. If the first read the quarterback doesn't like, which he throws here, isn't open. And I can't believe that he just doesn't run through this play, especially with him, as much space he has in front of him right here. And being a player that excels in running after the catch, getting him open space and speed, you should be wanting this play here. You should be wanting the ball here, and he just isn't running for it. And again, this isn't the most obvious play he's had in this game. It's just a microcosm of it, but it's something that happens consistently in this game, in the last game against Oklahoma State, and even in the game against Kansas that I watched earlier as well. He did have plays where he just wasn't putting good effort forward. Now, just to break up the monotony a bit, we're going to show a good route he runs here. It does get picked off, where he's on the top here against some off coverage. There's a little stutter step, tends to do a stutter and go, gets the corner going up high, and then has a good cut back down to do a comeback, get some separation. The underneath route, or underneath coverage, just was able to jump his route and get the pick here on this quarterback. But I do think that's like, he's the main read. He's the number one read on this play, and obviously he's trying hard now, can get separation. So it's a lot of effort, I think. This plays back to his effort thing, where he shows glimpses of being able to create separation with his route running, threaten with his speed, and he just doesn't do it consistently enough. And this play, unfortunately, gets picked off because the quarterback can't find the back read across the body while he's rolling out. It's not really a great play as well. The defender played it really well. And now we're getting to the drop section of this video. The negativity continues with Reagor's film here. He's on the bottom of your screen here. He gets separation on the slant and just a hands drop. He had 7 drops his final season in TCU, 7 of them, which is not great, especially for someone who didn't put up a ton of production, 611 yards. He could definitely have benefited from having 7 more catches, especially one here where if he gets this down, he may be able to get upfield and get some more yardage. I know it's not the best throw off target a little bit. He has to go up and try to get it, but hits in the hands. It's a drop. And it's not going to be the last one you see in this game specifically. Next play. Again, a quarterback play isn't the best here. I think that's another reason why he dropped in production in 2019. But this ball is here. He's splitting the safety and the corner. This is in the last minute of the second quarter, trying to get a touchdown. And he just drops the ball. He needs to go down and dig that one out. Like, it's another example of him not being able to come up with these plays. It's not a great throw, but it's something that he probably should come down with and get the catch there. So, another example of just, again, him not being able to pull in these passes. He has some really acrobatic catches on tape, but at the same time, he has some really ugly drops like we saw in the last play, and even this one to some extent. And then our last play of this film session here is going to be another drop here. He's going to be on the top of your screen getting the screen pass, and it just bounces off his chest. This is another example of TCU trying to get him into the gimmick touch game, utilize his run after catch, which, again, wasn't the most explosive thing or best part of his game in 2019, but something that he definitely could have expounded on if he was able to operate a bit more on this offense, especially with how good of a returner he was this year. But another play where it just hits him, bounces right off his chest, isn't using his hands properly to bring that ball in, is just accepting it into his body, and it just bounces off. So you've got to collect that one. Another example of his hands just kind of being suspect this whole season in 2019. So with that being said, that's all the film clips I'm going to show you for this video. Let's talk about where I graded Jalen Reagor. If I was scouting Jalen Reagor for the 2026 NFL draft, the upcoming draft, I have a day 3 grade on him, around 5 or 6 grade. And again, this is me. I didn't watch, before I graded him, or when I graded him, I had not watched anything of him in the NFL. I personally was uninformed of why he didn't succeed in the NFL. I wanted to watch the film first before I went back and watched him in the NFL and learned about why he didn't succeed as a receiver in the NFL. So for me, I really liked his ability to return. You saw the clips of his big punt return touchdowns while I was talking earlier in this video. It was electric. He showed some contact balance, his ability to get some speed, break plays long, and have some consistent returning ability. He had some really good punt return games, especially PFF graded-wise, in 2019. So I can see why a team saw that and thought, okay, he's adding this element to his game, as it's mentioned, and we think he can also translate that to the offense with some speed, with some run after catch ability. That can be an element that he brings to our team, brings a speed element, can be a returner for us, can affect our team in a bunch of different ways. So that could be something that you'd want to invest in. And I can definitely see that. And the speed plays into his route running, like I talked about earlier. You saw he could get some separation when he's given space. When corners have to respect his speed, he's able to get separation and make plays down the field like that. And he has that acrobatic catch ability. So you'd think even if he doesn't get a ton of separation down the field, he can still go up and make some plays for you despite being a smaller receiver. I can totally understand that. But for me, he is not a good separator, especially when he has to deal with any kind of strict coverage, when it's not 10 yards of cushion, even like 6-7 yards of cushion. He struggles a lot. If a corner can play physical with him or press him, which a lot of NFL corners are going to be able to do when he gets to the NFL, that's something that he's going to struggle with a ton with creating separation there. Even though he showed good run after the catch ability as a returner, I didn't really show up a ton in the games I watched of him in the receiving game. And the speed, while he did make plays down the field and teams did respect it, didn't show up as like this game-breaking element to me. So I didn't think all that stuff really warranted that much positive respect going to a first-round evaluation. And as well, hands are suspect. His attitude was terrible, and he was off script with his quarterback a ton. And even when this quarterback would go into a scramble drill, he wasn't the best at reacting and giving his quarterback an option, mostly because he's given up on the play already. He had terrible effort. So for me, I would have labeled him as like a day 3 player. I wouldn't have taken a swing on him unless I wanted to maybe utilize him as a designated return player specifically and maybe try to tap into some of that offensive ability down the road and not to rely on him with that, making a return specialist only, and then potentially maybe utilize that as more of a gimmick touch player and see what I can really untap from him with the mentality side of it moving forward as a receiver. However, the Eagles drafted him with a first-round pick. So what did happen in his NFL career, and how did that go? So during the 2 seasons he played with the Eagles, he was played in 14 games. His rookie year, he had his highest receiving yards of his entire career on 31 receptions. He had 396 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown with a long of 55 yards. So he did show some of that explosiveness, but woefully underproduced for a first-round wide receiver. Like, that is disgusting. 31 catches, 396 yards, and 11 games started. Every game he played, he was a starter in. He did have 4 attempts in rushing, which, I mean, you can see them trying to utilize his run after catch ability there. And he did have 1 punt return touchdown, which was a 73-yarder on 4 punt returns in that 2020 season. So you see him starting to be utilized more in that return specialist role, having the ability to operate on the offense, getting some touches, but he woefully underperforms as statistically. And the same thing happens in 2021, starts 13 games, gets 33 catches, 299 yards, 2 touchdowns. This time he gets 10 rushes and 12 returns as a kick returner and 31 returns as a punt returner. So he's getting more action as a returner. He gets more action as running the football. And then after that, the Eagles just cut bait with him. He goes to the Minnesota Vikings, gets paired up with Justin Jefferson, who he's drafted 1 pick ahead of to only 2 years earlier. Jefferson at this point is one of the best receivers in the league after his rookie year. He plays 17 games for Minnesota, gets 8 catches for 104 yards, is their primary punt returner with 26 punt returns, loses 4 fumbles that season, which is insane. He also lost 2 each of the last 2 seasons with the Eagles. Then he ends up on New England in 2023, where he starts 1 game, plays 11, has 7 catches, 138 yards. He had 1 rush for 17 yards, 6 kick returns for 206 yards with a 98-yard kick return touchdown, and then no punt returns. He's now no longer a punt returner, even for the Patriots in 2023. And this past season in 2024, the Chargers added him to their practice squad, elevated him 8 times. He was a starter in 2 games. He caught 7 passes for 100 yards, had 3 rushes for -3 yards, and then had 1 singular kick return, no punt returns, and he fumbled once in that season with the Chargers. He had a total of 11 touches between kick returns, rushing, receiving, and he had a fumble on one. So you're seeing him now in the NFL, based on what I've seen with my own eyes, going back and watching some of the games he played in, and reading some of the summarizations of his time with the Eagles, Vikings, Patriots, and the Chargers. He's a guy who's struggling with separation, isn't really as dynamic as people thought he was going to be, had fumbling issues. And then also, especially if you saw the quarterback show on Netflix when they covered Kirk Cousins, did not show him in a good light when it came to being in the same script as his quarterback and being a high-effort player. He showed low effort, wasn't a high IQ player, wasn't on the same script with Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. And he also just had a bunch of things that we saw on tape with hands, fumbling issues, and eventually started impacting him negatively when it came to what I thought he would be able to do best, which was his return ability. So I think the Eagles missed heavy on Jalen Reagor. Maybe they were looking for a Deshaun Jackson replacement back in 2020. They needed that speed element, thought they could also get a return guy, and they had some untapped potential there with Reagor playing with a bad offense in TCU against debatably bad defensive coverage in the Big 12. You should have produced more than 611 yards, but regardless, they may have thought they were getting a speed element player who could be a returner, fill that Deshaun Jackson-shaped hole in their heart. And unfortunately, the stuff we saw on tape in 2019 continued to plague him throughout his career in the NFL, and that's where we're at here. Jalen Reagor was signed by the Chargers, again, for this upcoming offseason, so he will be having in a contention for a playing spot in 2025. However, I don't really think that is going to be something that he can sustain for a long time. I think he may be out of the league shortly soon. So that is the story of Jalen Reagor, the college prospect drafted one pick ahead of Justin Jefferson. We broke down the film, saw that the issues that he had in the NFL were evident in 2019. He should have never been a first-round pick. Shouldn't have even probably been a day 2 pick with how we saw on the tape there. So this is the start of a series I want to go through, see players that either were overdrafted or total steals underdrafted, and see what the film says, and if that reflects what we see now in the NFL with their careers, otherwise they were a bust or why they were a steal. We can go back and with retrospect, see if we can find things on their tape to see if we could have seen that coming and where we could have missed and learned from in the future. If you guys have any suggestions of players you want to see me cover here, I can only go back to players who have film as late as 2018, I think, as the film software I use allows me to go back to use. So I can't do players super far back, unfortunately. But there are a ton of players still in the last 5-6 drafts that we already know are busts or complete steals that I can go back through, watch your tape, and then look at and see, okay, where did we miss on this player here? So if you have any suggestions, leave them in the comments. Like this video if you liked it. And go ahead and share it around if you have anyone else who is a fan of either watching NFL draft tape, the NFL draft in general, or just a fan of this player or the teams that the player played for. Maybe even you want to send this to an Eagles fan you don't like so you can remind them that Jalen Reagor was picked one pick ahead of Justin Jefferson.